Sutta 10.73, the Buddha said, "Monks, these 10 things are desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world." What 10? Wealth is desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world. Beauty, health, virtue, the holy life, friends, much knowledge, wisdom, teachings, the heaven worlds are desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world. These are the 10. Stop here for a moment. You just have a look at this. Wealth, everybody wants wealth. It's hard to get. Beauty also, especially women like to have beauty, also hard to get. Health also. Sometimes we take health for granted, but sometimes our health fails. Virtue, holy life. Holy life, that means a spiritual life, becoming a monk or a nun. And then friends, then much knowledge and wisdom, and the teachings, the heaven worlds, all these are hard to attain. Then the Buddha said, "Monks, to these 10 things desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world, 10 things are obstacles. Sloth and non-exertion is an obstacle to wealth. Lack of finery and adornment is an obstacle to beauty. Not exercising regularly is an obstacle to health. Friendship with the wicked is an obstacle to virtue. Non-restraint of the sense faculties is an obstacle to the holy life. Quarreling is an obstacle to having friends. Failure to repeat is an obstacle to much knowledge. Not to lend an ear and ask questions is an obstacle to wisdom. Lack of study and investigation is an obstacle to teaching. Wrong practice is an obstacle to gaining the heavens. These are the 10 obstacles to these 10 things which are desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world. Monks, 10 things are helps to these 10 things which are desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world. What are the 10? Energy and exertion are helps to getting wealth. Finery and adornment are helps to beauty. Regular exercise is a help to health. A lovely friendship is a help to virtue. Restraint of the sense faculties is a help to the holy life. Not quarreling is a help to friendship. Repetition is a help to much knowledge. Lending an ear and asking questions are helps to wisdom. Study and investigation are helps to teaching. Right practice is a help to the heaven world. These are the 10 helps to these 10 things which are desirable, dear, charming, hard to win in the world. That's the end of the sutta. So you see, these 10 things most people want. So here the Buddha is telling us how to get them. If you want to have wealth, then you have to have energy and exertion. You have to work very hard. A lot of people, they want to pray for wealth, but it doesn't come that way. We have to work very hard. And then finery and adornment are helps to beauty. If we want to look beautiful, then we have to make up and adorn the body, then it looks beautiful. Regular exercise is a help to health. Nowadays, people tend not to exercise so much. When we were younger, you find that a lot of people, they earn their livelihood by working very hard and sweating. But nowadays, people push the pen, as they say. That's all the exercise they do, push the pen. So not much exercise. So we need to take exercise, otherwise we cannot be healthy. One suggestion is you come to our vihara, plenty of exercise. A lovely friendship is a help to virtue. If you have a good friend who will guide you the virtuous way, then another day you can go to heaven, have a good rebirth, and then you'll be very thankful to him. Restraint of the sense faculties is a help to the holy life. You have to guard our 6 senses if we want to practice the holy life. Not quarreling is a help to friendship. If you want to retain our friends, we don't want to be quarrelsome. Repetition is a help to much knowledge. This was especially true during the Buddha's time, when they did not have books. So you have to repeat whatever you learn to remember and have much knowledge. Lending an ear and asking questions are helps to wisdom. If we want to have wisdom, we need to hear properly and ask questions. Whatever we don't understand, we should ask, and then we will know more. Study and investigation are helps to teaching. If we want to teach, and then we have to study and investigate properly, and then only we can teach others. Right practice is a help to the heaven world. That means doing the right things. For example, keeping your sila, keeping your precepts, having good moral conduct. And then the second thing is generosity. These two are very important if we want to have rebirth in the heaven worlds. Moral conduct and generosity or charity. Now the sutta is 10.74. The Buddha said, monks, by increasing in 10 growths, the Aryan disciple grows in the Aryan growth, takes hold of the essential, takes hold of the best for his person. What 10? He grows in landed property, in wealth and granary, in child and wife, in slaves and folk who work for him, in four-footed beasts. He grows in faith and virtue, in love, generosity and wisdom. In these 10 growths, the Aryan disciple grows in the Aryan growth, takes hold of the essential, takes hold of the best for his person. That's the end of the sutta. This sutta is more for lay people, lay people like you. The Buddha says, these 10 things are good for you in the Aryan discipline. Having more landed property, that means having more land property. Second one, having wealth and granary, having a lot of money and property. But of course you must know how to use it properly, otherwise it would not be good. Then number 3, child and wife, having a lot of children, and maybe a lot of wives also during the Buddha's time, because at that time they were not monogamous. A man could have as many wives as he could support. Then number 4, slaves and workers. Then number 5 is four-footed beasts, animal property, like cattle and pigs and all that. Number 6, having faith, having more faith. Number 7, virtue or moral conduct. Number 8, love or loving kindness, metta. Number 9, generosity or charity. Number 10, wisdom. So these are good qualities to acquire, good things to acquire for lay people. Now we come to Sutta number 10.99. I skipped some suttas because I try to finish this book. I only read the important suttas. 10.99. Now the Venerable Upali came to the Exalted One, paid homage and sat to one side. Seated to one side, he said to the Exalted One, Sir, I desire to frequent woodland haunts in the forest, to be a lodger in solitude. And the Buddha said, Upali, to frequent woodland haunts in the forest and to be a lodger in solitude are things hard to do. A hard thing it is to dwell secluded. It is hard to find delight in living alone. The woods strain the mind. I think of a monk who has not one concentration of mind. Whoso, Upali, should say, though I have not one concentration of mind, yet I will frequent woodland haunts in the forest. I will be a lodger in solitude. Of him it is to be expected that either he will sink to the bottom or float on the surface. Suppose, Upali, there is a great pool of water. Then comes a bull elephant, 7 or 8 cubits in height. Stop here for a moment. Here, cubit is the length of a forearm, slightly more than a foot. So this elephant is 7 or 8 cubits in height. And he thinks thus, suppose I plunge into this pool of water and amuse myself with the sport of squirting water into my ears or over my back. When I have enjoyed this sport and washed and drunk and come out again, suppose I go whithersoever it pleases me. So in he goes and does so, comes out again, and goes whithersoever it pleases him. How can he do it? The great bulk of his person, Upali, finds a footing in deep water. But suppose a hare, there is a rabbit, or a cat, should come and say to itself, what difference is there between myself and the bull elephant? Suppose I plunge into this pool of water and amuse myself with the sport of squirting water into my eyes, or into my ears, or over my back. When I have enjoyed this sport and washed and drunk and come out again, suppose I go whithersoever it pleases me. So he springs into that pool of water hastily and without consideration. Then this is to be expected of him. Either he will sink to the bottom or float on the surface. Why so? The smallness of his person, Upali, finds no footing in deep water. Just in the same way, Upali, whoso should say, though I have not one concentration of mind, yet I will frequent woodland haunts in the forest. I will be a lodger in solitude. Of him it is to be expected that either he will sink to the bottom or float on the surface. I'll stop here for a moment to comment. This monk Upali is not that famous Upali who was the monk most learned in the Vinaya. This was another monk. This Upali is not well known. So the Buddha told him that if he wants to stay in the forest and stay alone in the deep forest, he must at least get some concentration. Otherwise, he won't be able to practice. Because if our mind is not steady, we have not tamed the mind by attaining concentration. When we live alone, it can disturb us a lot. We can feel a lot of thoughts disturbing us, and we won't be able to practice. And a lot of other things. If your mind is not steady, you have a lot of hardship. Nobody to confide in, nobody to consult. Then you also cannot stand, or sometimes you might not get enough food to eat, or sometimes in the evening you might not feel very well also, and nobody to comfort you. You are staying all by yourself, so you need to have a fairly strong mind. That's why not many monks are capable of staying alone, and especially of staying alone long. There are some monks, they can stay alone for 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even 3 months. But you ask them to stay year after year alone, it is very difficult for most people. Then the Buddha said, again Upali, suppose a tender boy child, feeble and lying on his back and playing with his own excrement. What think you, Upali? Does not this childish sport come to completion and fullness? And he said, it does, sir. Well then, Upali, that boy child on another occasion, when he has grown older, following on the ripening of the sense faculties, plays with whatever may be the playthings of such children, such as a toy plough, tip cat, somersaults, windmills, leaf pannikins, toy carts and toy bows. Now what think you, Upali? Does not this game come to be finer and more valued than the former? And he said, it does, sir. Well, Upali, that child later on, when he has grown older, owing to the ripening of his sense faculties, and has come into possession of the 5 sense pleasures, and is possessed by them, he becomes a prey to them, to objects cognizable by the eye, objects desirable, agreeable, fascinating, attractive, to sounds, to odors, taste, touch, etc., things concerned with sensual desires and passionate. Now what think you, Upali? Does not this game come to be finer and more valuable than the former? And he said, it does, sir. Now look you, Upali, a Tathagata arises in the world, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, endowed with knowledge and conduct, etc. He makes known this world with its devas, its maras, its brahmas, its recluses and brahmins, its hosts of devas and mankind, himself realizing it by his own comprehension. He teaches Dhamma, lovely in the beginning, lovely in the middle, lovely in the end, both in its meaning and its letter. He shows the holy life utterly fulfilled and purified. Then a householder or a householder's son, or one reborn in some family or other, hears that Dhamma. On hearing that Dhamma, he wins faith in the Tathagata. In possession of that faith which he has won, he ponders thus: oppressive is the home life, a way of dust. The way of going forth is of the open air. It is no easy thing for one living the household life to practice the holy life in all its completeness, in utter purity like a polished shell. What if I were to get the hair of my beard shorn, get my hair and my beard shorn, and donning the saffron robe were to go forth from home to the homeless life? Then he, some time later on, abandoning the whole mass of his wealth, whether small or great, abandoning his circle of relatives, whether small or great, gets his hair and his beard shorn, and dons the saffron robes, and goes forth from the home to the homeless life. Stop here for a moment. You see, normally for a person to go forth, he hears the Dhamma. After hearing the Dhamma, he understands the meaning of the Dhamma. And then he sees anicca, impermanence in life, that we all grow old and die. Then he goes forth. And then the Buddha continues. He, having thus gone forth, having entered upon the way of life in the training followed by the monks, abandoning the slaying of creatures, abstains therefrom. He lives as one who has laid down the rod, who has laid down the knife, who has scruples. He is kind and compassionate, and is compassionate for every living being. Abandoning the taking of what is not given, he abstains therefrom. He lives as one who takes only what is given, who waits for what is given. He lives with a self that has become pure, not by stealth. Abandoning the unchaste life, he lives chaste. He lives a life aloof, abstaining from the sexual act, from dealings with women. Abandoning falsehood, he abstains therefrom. He speaks the truth, joins truth to truth, unswerving, reliable, no deceiver of the world. Abandoning slanderous speech, he abstains therefrom. When he hears something at one place, he spreads it not abroad elsewhere, to cause dissension among those folk. When he hears something at another place, he spreads it not abroad elsewhere, to cause dissension among these folk. Thus he reconciles those who are at variance, and confirms the friendly. He delights in harmony, finds pleasure therein, rejoices in harmony, and utters words that make for harmony. Abandoning bitter speech, he abstains therefrom. Whatever speech is blameless, pleasing to the ear, affectionate, speech that goes to the heart, is urbane, delights many folk, such speech does he utter. Abandoning idle gossip, he abstains therefrom. He is one who speaks in season, speaks of facts, speaks sense, speaks according to Dhamma, speaks according to the Vinaya, or discipline. He speaks words worth treasuring up, words seasonable, reasonable, discriminating and concerned with benefit. He is one who abstains from injury to seed life and plant life. He lives on one meal a day, refrains from food at night and at unseasonable hours, from flowers, scents, unguents, adornments and finery. He abstains from shows of dancing and singing, from beds high and broad, from taking gifts of gold and silver, that is money, from gifts of uncooked grain, gifts of uncooked flesh, from gifts of women and girls, female and male slaves, of goats and sheep, fowls and pigs, elephants, cattle, horses, and mares. He abstains from gifts of fields, cultivated or waste, from buying and selling, abstains from sending messengers or going as such, from cheating with scales, copper vessels or measures, from taking bribes to pervert justice, from cheating and crooked ways. He abstains from cutting, flogging, binding, highway robbery, plundering and deeds of violence. Let's stop here for a moment. This is all a description of moral conduct, sila for monks. Then the Buddha continues, he is content with a robe sufficient to protect the body, with alms food sufficient for his belly's needs. Wherever he may go, he takes these with him. Just as, for instance, a bird upon the wing, wherever it may fly, flies with the load of its wings. Even so, a monk is content with a robe, with alms food, and takes these with him. Possessed of this Aryan mass of morals, he experiences in himself the bliss of blamelessness. I stop here for a moment. This is a description of contentment The monk does not want many things. Then the Buddha continues, seeing an object with the eye, he is not misled by its outer view or by its lesser details. Since coveting and dejection, evil unprofitable states, might flow in upon one who lives with the faculty of the eye uncontrolled, he applies himself to such control, sets a guard over the faculty of eye and attains control thereof. Hearing a sound with the ear, or with the nose smelling a scent, or with the tongue tasting a savour, or with body contacting tangibles, or with mind cognizing mental states, he is not misled by their outer view or by their lesser details. But since coveting and dejection, evil unprofitable states, might flow in upon one who lives thus, he sets a guard over his sense faculties, attains control thereof. Thus, possessed of this Aryan restraint of faculties, he experiences in himself unadulterated bliss. Stop here for a moment. This refers to the guarding of the sense faculties for a monk. And then to continue, in his goings out and his comings in, he acts composedly. In looking in front and looking behind, in bending or relaxing, in wearing his robe and bearing outer robe and bowl, in eating, drinking, chewing and tasting, in easing in himself, in going, standing, sitting, sleeping, waking, in speaking and keeping silence, he acts composedly. This one, this refers to awareness, sampajanya, or mindfulness in whatever he does. Let me continue. Possessed of this Aryan mass of morals and this Aryan restraint of the sense faculties and composure, he resorts to a secluded lodging place, a forest, the root of a tree, a hill, ravine, grotto or cave, a charnel field or cemetery, a jungle path, an open space, a heap of straw. Thus gone to the forest or root of a tree or a lonely place, he sits down cross-legged, keeping his body erect and fixing attention in front of him. Then, abandoning the hankering after the world, he abides with heart freed therefrom. He cleanses his heart of hankering. Abandoning the taint of ill will, with heart free from ill will, he abides having regard for the welfare and feeling compassion for every living being. He cleanses his heart of the taint of ill will. Abandoning sloth and torpor, he remains freed therefrom, wide awake, mindful, composed, and cleanses his heart of sloth and torpor. Abandoning restlessness and worry, he abides restful at heart in the inner self. He cleanses his heart of restlessness and worry. Abandoning doubt and wavering, he abides as one who has transcended them, no longer questioning this or that in things profitable. He cleanses his heart of doubt and wavering. Stop here for a moment. This going to a secluded lodging place is not going to the deep forest, going to a quiet place, not so deep into the forest where he can come out easily. And then to continue, thus abandoning these 5 hindrances, these taints of the heart which cause the weakening of wisdom, aloof from sense desires, aloof from unprofitable states, he enters into the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought directed and sustained, born of seclusion, delightful and easeful, and so abides. Now what think you, Upali? Is not this way of living more excellent and choice than his former ways? And he said, it is, sir. Now Upali, my disciples coming to see this Dhamma in the self, follow after woodland haunts in the forest and solitary lodging, but not if they have attained their own good do they dwell there. Let's stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying, if a monk attains the first jhana, then he can go into the deep forest and stay alone by himself. Then the Buddha continues, again Upali, a monk by calming down, thought directed and sustained, attains the second jhana. Now what think you, Upali? Is not this way of living more excellent and choice than his former ways of living? It is, sir. Indeed, Upali, my disciples, coming to see this Dhamma in the self, follow after woodland haunts in the forest and solitary lodging, but not if they have attained their own good do they dwell there. Similarly, the Buddha goes into the third jhana, fourth jhana, and then the formless jhanas, the base of infinite space, the base of infinite consciousness, the base of nothingness, and the base of neither perception nor non-perception. And then passing beyond that, he attains the cessation of perception and feeling, and so abides. And by insight, beholding it, he knows that in himself the asavas are destroyed. Now what think you, Pali? In each of these stages, is not this way of living more excellent and choice than his former ways? And he said, it is, sir. And the Buddha said, my disciples, Upali, because they behold this Dhamma in the self, follow after woodland haunts in the forest and solitary lodging, but not if they have attained their own good, do they dwell there. Come then, Upali, do you dwell with the Sangha order? Dwelling with the Sangha will be pleasant for you. So that's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is telling this monk that he should not go into the forest because he has not attained sufficient concentration to support him. So the Buddha says only after a monk attains the first jhana, then he is encouraged to go into the deep forest and live alone, but not otherwise. Now we go to the next sutta, 10.101. The Buddha said, monks, 3 ideas of a recluse, if made to grow, made much of, complete 7 other conditions. What 3? 1. I am now come to a state of being an outcast. 2. My life is dependent upon others. Number 3. I must now conduct myself differently. These 3 ideas of a recluse, if made to grow, made much of, complete 7 other conditions. What 7? 1. He is one who ever and always makes no pause in action or practice of virtue. He does no harm to anyone. He is without self-conceit. He is eager for the training. As regards the necessaries of life, he thinks, this is my object. He dwells ardent in energy. Thus, monks, these 3 ideas of a recluse, if made to grow, if made much of, complete these 7 conditions. So, that's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying that a monk should contemplate these 3 important things. First, that he has now come to the state of being an outcast. That means an outcast from society. A person who is not somebody in society. So he must always remember that. Because if he remembers that, then he will act quite different. Number 2, he must remember, my life is dependent upon others. Number 3, I must now conduct myself differently. If a monk understands these 3 things, then he humbles himself. He knows that his life is in the hands of lay supporters, and then he will behave quite differently. So these 7 things the Buddha says he will practice. Number 1, he makes no pause in action. Here action is satatakari. He makes no pause in action. I don't know whether that means he's very energetic in striving. Number 2, he makes no pause in the practice of virtue. In his precepts, he remembers to uphold his precepts. Number 3, he does no harm to anyone. Number 4, he is without self-conceit. He becomes a humble person. Number 5, he is eager for the training. The training is the Buddha's training in the Noble Eightfold Path of Sila, Samadhi, Panya. And number 6, as regards the necessaries of life, he thinks, this is my object. In other words, he thinks, my object is practicing the holy life. As far as the requisites of life, they are not so important. Whether I get a good robe, or I eat good food, or I sleep in a very comfortable bed, or something not so important. Number 7, he dwells ardent in energy. That means he is very energetic in cultivating the holy life. So these 3 conditions is very good for a monk to remember.